Welcome back to Preparing for the Unexpected. Today we are talking with Chris Snider on insurance perspectives and resilience. Chris, great first two segments. The next thing I'd like to talk about is something that's happening here in Canada regarding insurance, and that's Bill, I want to get the name right, S211, S211.
So Bill S211, officially called an act to enact the Fighting Against Forced Labor and Child Labor and Supply Chains Act, an amendment to the Customs Tariff Act, long-winded. What went through Parliament and the Senate and received royal assent in May of 2023, which means that the new bill takes effect as of January 1st, 2024. And as I'll get into it, their first reporting for that to follow that bill is due by organizations May 31st of 2024. So it's a new act and an amendment to the Customs and Tariff Act, and that'll sort of be included in this sort of definition. What this is, and there's similar acts in some of the states in the United States. I believe the federal government of the United States is looking at a nationwide act, bill similar to this. European Union, Germany, UK, they've got similar types of wording. But basically what it is it's saying that any corporation, trust, partnership, or other type of business entity within inside Canada that's producing, selling, or distributing goods or importing goods to be sold, listed on the stock exchange or have a physical location in Canada, or some of the triggers, need to report on their supply chain if there is any forced or child labor found within inside their supply chain from origin of source up to where they're distributing and then downstream. The other triggers are that the organization needs to meet two of the following three criteria: 20 million or more in assets, 40 million or more in revenue, or 250 employees. So any two of those three, plus the other items I mentioned, they're now triggered to have to put out this report that details their supply chain. And there's specific requirements with inside there. Some of the requirements are the transparency into the supply chain, the reduction or prevention once identified if there's forced or child labor, the measures that you're taking from the prior year. Also interesting how they're remediating the loss of income to the most vulnerable people, because if you remove that labor from your supply chain, typically those individuals are in the supply chain, the forced or child labor in the supply chain, because that's the country they're in, the life that they're living. And all of a sudden now you're saying, no, we're not going to be buying products from there anymore. So it's remediating their exposure, as well as making sure you monitor and suppliers don't creep back into your supply chain. This is all going to be going down to assessments of your supply chain and transparency in your supply chain, which is very difficult for a lot of organizations. Everybody's talking about, how do I get tiers down? What's interesting to note about this is that you might be a listener right now thinking, oh, okay, well, I don't meet any of those criteria, so I don't have to worry about it. You might actually be a link in somebody else's supply chain that does have to report that. So just because you don't meet the criteria to have to report on this, all of a sudden you're going to be called up and saying, hey, we need to know about your suppliers because I need to report on this. So it doesn't just affect those that are specifically triggered to report on this, but also some of their suppliers on the stream coming, so upstream coming to the downstream. But it goes down to, how am I going to assess, manage, and understand that supply chain? And that's where having the right combination of resilience and engineering can help find that. What I do think is that, I should mention, part of the bill does indicate penalties. So Section 19 of the Act, essentially, it's a summary conviction if you're not doing it or you're not following the bill, summary conviction, and can be up to $250,000 penalty. and that can happen year after year. It's got to be publicly available. You have to have the head of your organization sign off on it. So everybody's going to see it, and you're going to be taking responsibility for it. Insurance companies spend a lot of time working on their, I don't want to say image, but insurance companies are very socially conscious. If you want to find out, go on to LinkedIn, follow your insurance carrier, follow a couple others. You're going to see that they talk about how they're a great place to work, that they're supporting sustainability, climate change, diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're really working to make sure that they are seen as a socially conscious organization, and they want to be associated with companies that they insure that are of the like mind. Or if they aren't, that they're working to become better. So they're working towards improving their carbon offset or diversity and inclusion. That's where I think the insurance piece is going to come in, but also the insurance engineering is going to be a part of it, at least in the beginning, to better understand that supply chain piece and say, oh, you have some of this in your supply chain. How are we going to go about doing it? And we may have advice for them to remove that from their supply chain.
So who does this whole assessment? Because that can be huge. And you did mention engineering, as well, but I know from, and I'm sure you probably heard it at the BCI conference, it's always the business continuity resilience person. You should be doing this. It's like, well, I'm hearing from you that, it's bigger than what you think, or could be.
Yeah, it is a lot. It is a lot bigger than you think, and it's going to take some time. And the more specialized individuals you can bring in, whether they're with inside your organization or you're bringing them with outside, can help manage the workload and get things done faster. And once you catch up, then you're okay. I mean, I kind of go, because my mom always told me if I kept my room clean every single day, I wouldn't be spending half of my Saturday cleaning up my room, right? So it's let's clean it up.
Sounds
And
like
then let's keep it clean through the day. Obviously you want to try to make sure you're finding the right people to help and the questions to ask. And there are a lot of different tools out there. They're supply monitoring tools, real-time tools that can let you know about suppliers and things like that. But you really do need to start from scratch and say, okay, let's go to our first tier, let's go to our second tier, let's go to our third tier.
So we only have 3 minutes left. Our time just flies by today. Do you have any final thoughts on resilience and insurance?
Honestly, my final thoughts would be organizations should understand that there is a great value in finding the proper engineering and insurance knowledge to bring into the organization and help them with their resilience. If you're looking to your insurance carrier, they've got individuals. If you're looking to your broker, they have individuals, and then there are various independents. What I do find is a little, I mean, it's going to change obviously, but with inside the realm of the insurance engineering, a lot of engineers are hired with a property or machinery breakdown or workers' compensation liability background, and then are said, oh, by the way, can you let us know about their business resilience? Do they have a continuity plan? So it's always been a low focused area within inside the engineering world. So there are very few engineers out there that actually know the resilience and know the insurance engineering. Again, that's changing. You're going to see more and more of them crop up in those different settings. But you want to find the right person to help you with the situation or the problem or the questions that you have now. That might be with the insurance company, that might be an independent, that might be with your broker. They all have different reasons for doing what they're doing. Insurance companies helping you because it helps them. The broker is doing it because it helps market you to a broader insurance audience. The independent organizations are there representing you, but they're creating a report that's suitable for brokers and insurance carriers.
And dealing with these people will help the organizational leadership and the various teams involved deal with assumptions, because the only assumption that'll get proven correct when something happens is that all your assumptions are wrong. So get the right people at the table ahead of time and really focus on some of those, because there's a lot of people that are dealing with assumptions. So talk with insurance, like when we started, people who think right off the bat, we're covered. Nope.
Absolutely. And the great thing about it is that once you bring them in and once you get used to it and understanding, it can kind of fade away, because now you've got the knowledge and the understanding of what you're supposed to be doing. So it's not a permanent thing, right? The insurance company may still come out and visit and do property assessments or liability assessments, but you bring in an individual that can help you out on that side. You gain knowledge from them and a different perspective, a different angle. And eventually you've got that skill set where you know what questions to ask and what to do. And you can just pick up the phone casually and talk to them. So it isn't something that's perpetual and you need to have it forever.
On that note, we've come to the end of the show. Chris, thanks so much to agree to come and chat here today and talk about insurance, because as I say, it's something that I really wanted to have on the show for a long time. So I'm really glad I ran into you and we got to talk about this today.
It's been my pleasure, just scratching the surface on stuff like this. So I'm always happy to talk about it.
Most people aren't. So
it's a missing piece. It's a missing piece. With it, the conversation does need to start happening.
Well, I hope people found some value in today's talk on insurance, because there was a lot of things here that got me thinking as well that I hadn't been able to address, which is why I wanted to have you here today. So thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And everyone watching and listening, stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.